I'm DuEwa Frazier, and I'm here at the St. Louis Public Library in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here to celebrate Teen Read Week, and I have two of my teen novels with me, Deanne in the Middle and Quincy Rules. I hope you enjoy my talk. What makes for an interesting YA writer's background? Here are some of the things that I think might be the budding start of a young adult writer, someone who is really interested in writing for teens. Their teen young adult life was rather fun and memorable, enjoys reading stories about teens and young adults, has a vivid imagination, has lived in more than one place during childhood and or their adult life, has varied interests, enjoys observing, listening to, and interacting with people, has specific, very vivid memories, likes and experiences that might inspire a story, enjoys telling a story with humor, imagery, surprise, disappointment, angst, and embarrassment in mind, sees life and storytelling as an adventure. I believe I fit many of those characteristics. Okay, so I'd like to get into my first teen novel, Deanne in the Middle. Just to give you some background, I began writing this story in 2007. The novel was published in 2014. I always wanted to write a story that is set in St. Louis because it is something that's close to me. The main character, Deanne Summers, is a 14-year-old freshman high school student. Like many teens, she grapples with making good social choices, but gets caught between two groups of friends who don't necessarily mix and mingle. Deanne is what I would call a thoughtful character. Not only does she observe and has real concerns about her peers, but she is also self-reflective and tries to make decisions that are aligned with her values. Is she a goody two-shoes? Yes, in some ways, but in other ways, no. Her family background has more of an impact on her than her peers, but she struggles to find a balance between fulfilling those family expectations and being well-liked by her friends. There are a lot of humorous points in the story, but also points of tension and conflict. There is definitely teen drama. So I'd like to read an excerpt from the novel for you, and hopefully you'll be able to envision some of the things that are going on in the book. I'm going to read from one of the end chapters, and the chapter title is All in a Day's Hate. So despite Deanne does her best to try to stay out of trouble and drama, because of the circumstances, the social conflicts, and the different people around her, she sometimes is not always able to stay out of the conflict. So this is a scene where she actually was caught in a struggle or a fight with another student who doesn't like her, and she doesn't know why the student doesn't like her. Tears of humiliation and anger run down my face. The security guards have their arm around me, and everyone in the hallway is staring. I see Kristen, Palmer, Michelle, and Daphne watching her. Why didn't Michelle and Daphne help me when Mavis was pulling on me? They were right there. Hundreds of students and teachers are watching us walk to the principal's office. I see Mrs. Cutchins with a look of disbelief on her face. I have to hold my head up because I know it wasn't my fault. We arrive at the office of the principal, Mr. Chamberlain. "What are your names?" Miss Owens asked. Deanne Summers, Mavis Jones. Taking out a notepad, Miss Owens begins to write. "So, what happened?" Miss Owens asks. Mavis starts to speak. "No, I want to hear it from the officers first, and go tell Mrs. Aioli I need a report on what she saw immediately, since she's on her prep time." The two officers give their account, and then one leaves to tell Mrs. Aioli about the report. Just when the officers come back, Mr. Chamberlain opens his door. "I hear I have two students who were fighting in class." "Owens, bring them in. Let's talk." We walk into the principal's office. "Do you know that fighting carries a suspension of 3 days here?" Miss Owens asked. "How could you possibly have been fighting when it's only the second month of school?" "Well, almost the third. What are your names, and tell me what happened one by one." I watched Mr. Chamberlain lean back in his dark brown leather chair. "Well, she was messing with me, and that's how it all started." Mavis rolls her eyes. Mr. Chamberlain looks at me. What's your side? Mr. Chamberlain asked me. Well, I was talking to Palmer Piro, and Mavis turned around and told me I was being too loud. She also told me I was staring at her, but I wasn't. She sits in front of me, so it would be impossible for me to stare at her unless she turned around to look at me, which she did. I wasn't bothering her. Then after class, she called me an Oreo, and then out of the blue, she pulled my hair. And she wouldn't let go of me. I kicked her in the knees to get her off of me, and then Mrs. Aioli called security. Mavis, does any of what she said sound right? Miss Owens asks. Mavis says, rolling her eyes. Maybe if her eyes pop out of her head and roll onto Mr. Chamberlain's floor, we can all go home. Don't answer me like that. It's either yes or no, young lady, Miss Owens says sternly. Okay, yes. The officer comes with Mrs. Aioli. She tells her thoughts on the incident. Here's my report. Girls, I don't allow fighting in my class. You must learn how to solve your problems without hitting each other. Mr. Chamberlain takes the report, reads it, and looks at both of us. It looks like from reading this, Mavis, that you started a fight purposefully with Deanne, Mr. Chamberlain said. Miss Owens, write both of them up for fighting. Give them 3 days. We can't tolerate this at Stonywood. We're trying to raise fine students, and we have a good reputation in this community. If you want to act like a bunch of wildcats, this isn't the place for you. We'll send you to an alternative school. Do you hear me, Mavis Jones? Yes. Not yes. Yes, sir, Mr. Chamberlain says. Yes, sir. One of the security officers comes back in. Miss Owens, Mr. Chamberlain, we have a few students that want to speak with you privately about this. Is that okay? It's fine. I'll come out to them. You girls stay here with the officer. Owens, let's go out. Mr. Chamberlain and Miss Owens walk out to the hallway where Palmer and Kristen are standing. I hear them talking. Mr. Chamberlain, we want to tell you what we saw. Okay, I don't think Mavis likes Deanne. I don't exactly know what started it, but I know Mavis is always turning around in her seat, staring at Deanne, and once she tripped Deanne when Deanne got out of her seat. I heard Mavis call Deanne an Oreo when we were all leaving class. All I heard Deanne say is, whatever. And the next thing you know, Mavis pounced on her, Palmer says. Deanne's one of my best friends, and she never gets into trouble. She was just chosen to be in Absolute Rhythms Dance Company. She's a nice girl. I heard the commotion when I was in the hallway walking to my third period class. Then I heard someone say, this girl is beating up Deanne Summers. I freaked out and moved in through the crowd to see Mavis just pulling Deanne's hair and dragging her around on the floor. It was horrible. Mr. Chamberlain, Deanne didn't do anything. I think people are picking on her for all the wrong reasons, Kristen says. All right, well, thanks for your help. If you don't mind, I need the two of you to write up the statements you just gave me on paper and give it to me by the end of the day. Mr. Chamberlain says. Palmer and Kristen walk back to class. Wow, my friends are standing up for me. Not the friends I thought would stand up for me either. This day is turning out to be like an episode of The Twilight Zone. So that's my excerpt of Deanne in the middle. You might ponder on some of the things that were going on there. Maybe there's some issues of bullying, some issues pertaining to conflict resolution. How well did the school officials handle it? So those are some of the things you might think of when reading this kind of story. So next, I'm going to talk about my most recent book, Quincy Rules. I began writing Quincy Rules in 2010 when I was in my Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing graduate program at the New School. A few people in my grad program remarked about my main character's name, Quincy. They thought it was an odd name for a girl. I did not. I loved it. It's a name that came to me for a story about a 15-year-old girl who is on a mission to find someone who is close to her birth father. Quincy Rules is a mystery. The story is driven by Quincy's quest. I was intrigued to write this story to not only push my imagination, but because I wanted to develop a character who is different from Deanne. So develop a character totally different from the previous story that I wrote. A character who shows bravery as she faces some tough decisions that all teens may not face. Quincy's best friend Delaney is always by her side as she follows clues and intuition. I think they make a very good sleuthing duo. I love mysteries as a young reader. I also love mystery movies. Clue is one of my favorites. I loved any mystery story where an unlikely person solves the mystery. Quincy Rules is that unlikely person in this story. So I'm going to read an excerpt from the book, and this is a scene where Quincy has already started collecting information and journeying out, venturing out on her own to try to find people and places that might be familiar to who her dad is and where he might be now. So Quincy believes she may have found a woman who is her dad's grandmother, but this isn't a woman who's been in her life. So she's really not sure if she's on the right track, but it's an interesting scene. So it's from a chapter titled Orange Ginger, and this is chapter 10 in the book. I approach the gate of the house on Dorsey Avenue. I see a woman sweeping. She's humming and bending down to pick up sticks off the concrete. She doesn't hear me open the gate at first until my backpack gets caught on one of the metal hooks. The lady looks up at me and stops sweeping. "Are you a Girl Scout selling cookies?" she asks. "I certainly don't need any. Why, I haven't even touched the last 8 boxes I bought from you girls last year. They're just too fattening anyway." "No," I say. "I'm not selling any cookies or anything." She stands with her chin resting on her hands, the broom right under her. She's dressed pretty snazzy for an older lady, and pretty colorful at that. Bright sneakers, an orange and turquoise sweatsuit, and sunglasses. But the sunglasses aren't that dark, they're only slightly tinted. I can still see her eyes. I can tell she's wearing a bunch of eyeliner and mascara and stuff, and she's got on hot pink lipstick. "Are you a runaway?" she asks. "You don't look like a runaway. Aren't you supposed to be in school?" "If you're looking for a place to stay, I don't rent to minors." "No," I say. "I'm not looking for a place to stay, and I'm not a runaway, miss. I try to finish, but she keeps cutting me off." "Well, if you're looking for Peter, my tenant's son," she snarls. "He's already gone to football practice. That boy has more girls coming by here to see him. I don't know why he's not much to look at." "Come on, lady, I don't have all day. I wish she'd stop with all the questions." "No, I don't know Peter." "Well, if you're not here for Peter and you don't sell Girl Scout cookies, what do you want, young lady?" I'm looking for someone," I say. "A man who used to live here. See? I take out the photo of me and my dad from my bag and show it to her." She pauses and doesn't say anything. She just has this blank, calm look on her face. Can't tell if she recognizes him or not. "Do you know the man in the picture?" I ask. "That's who I'm looking for. He used to live here." "I know who you are," she says. "You're Samantha, and this is my son, Richard." She takes the photo out of my hand but drops it, and she drops the broom too. Her hands are shaky like she has some kind of arthritis. "No, miss, I'm not Samantha," I say. "My name is Quincy Rules." "And your name?" "Mrs. Stackhouse, Jacqueline Stackhouse. And that baby there?" She tries to bend down to pick up the photo from the ground, but I beat her to it. "This is my granddaughter, Samantha." I've never argued with an older woman before. I probably shouldn't start. She might have information that I need. But she seems to be getting irritated. I don't know what I'm going to be able to get out of her. "Miss Stackhouse," I say, "I'm not Samantha, and Richard's not my father's name." "Richard's his name, Richard Stackhouse," she says, pointing at the photograph. "Named him right after his father, who passed on 7 years ago. Bless my Richard, what a good man he was. He just passed before he could see his little granddaughter again. Broke his heart." "Broke his heart? What broke his heart?" I ask. I feel like I'm in one of those weird black and white movies where there's an actress who's talking to no one in particular, even though people are there in the room with her. And she's going on and on about some fake illness or tragedy she's suffered. Meanwhile, the people in the room are trying to get her attention because the house is on fire and everyone's rushing out, except her. "Miss Stackhouse, Jacqueline," she says. "Call me Jacqueline." "Well, Grandma Jacqueline, really, since you're my Samantha, but Jacqueline to start." Okay, Jacqueline, I just want to find my dad, Albert. I know him as Albert Paul, at least that's the name he puts on the letters he sends me. And that's what my mom calls him. Your mother? Now, where is she, child? She asks. It's getting cold. Why don't we go inside? I'll make us some hot tea and then we'll talk. She turns her back, picks up the broom, and carries it to the side of the house. Sure, okay, I say. My mother's a big tea drinker, so I'm used to it. The house is a duplex, not very big. It looks like someone lives upstairs and someone else lives at the bottom. But the doors are side by side. The door on the right is open. That must be Jacqueline's house. As we walk up the steps, I hear a clock inside chiming. I check my phone. It's already 5. I know I can't stay much longer and I'm getting really hungry. My stomach always tells me when it's time to leave somewhere. We walk in and I immediately smell something I've never smelled before. It burns my nose a little bit. Make yourself comfortable, Jacqueline said. There's the closet to your left. You can hang up your coat and put your bag in there. Oh, take off your shoes. Don't want any dirt or mud on my clean white carpet. She takes off her own shoes and leaves them in the hallway. Okay, I say. Jacqueline disappears through the living room and down the hall, I guess, to the kitchen. I hear her open cabinets and the hissing sound of water pouring. What do you like, she asks. I have peppermint, orange ginger, chamomile, and English breakfast. Orange ginger, please. I take off my shoes and put them near the door. I open the closet to hang up my coat. Just as the door opens, a cat jumps out, meowing all the way to the kitchen, a flash of gray fur jumping past. I barely get a look at it. Your cat just came out of the closet, I say. Oh, that's Callie, she says. She likes to play in the closet. She's a sweet cat, kind of shy though. I still feel cold from the outside. The warmth from the house is helping me thaw. The living room is gray like Jacqueline's cat. The small amount of light streaming through the curtain folds casts shadows against the furniture. Everything looks vintage, old, and still. Looks like the only thing in this living room is used for is sipping tea. All of the furniture is so close together as if each chair and 3 sofas are talking to each other. I sit on the dark brown leather sofa. It's covered in pillows with images of colorful, embroidered cats. It's such a stereotype that lonely women like cats. I wonder, is Jacqueline lonely? The walls are covered in all kinds of paintings of fruit, ballerinas, cats, soldiers in war, women with bare shoulders and poofy hair, and a painting that looks like it's straight out of one of those Greek tragedies we've read in English class. She's got animal figurines on top of bookshelves and plenty of old-looking books. I don't see any magazines or newspapers. There's no television, no desk or computer. Tea is ready, Jacqueline says, putting a tray down on the coffee table in front of me. How much sugar do you like? 1 teaspoon? 2? I'll take 3, I say, leaning forward to grab my tea mug. You'll like this orange ginger. I'm having peppermint. It always settles my stomach and helps me burp. Jacqueline sits down across from me on the opposite sofa. We both sip our tea in silence for a few minutes. I feel a little weird being here, but I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not really sure that she's my grandmother. She could just be some crazy lady. I need to find out, though. Jacqueline, you said that the man in the photo is your son, Richard, but I know him as Albert. Do you know my mom? Of course I know your mother, dear. They lived here together when you were just a little baby. Richard, your grandfather, and I were in Georgia at the time, she says, stirring sugar into her teacup. What do you mean at the time, I asked. The time of what? Well, when your mother married Richard, she says, she was very young, right out of college, and my son was already working. Then she got pregnant with you. Well, tell me what happened. Do you know why they broke up? Oh, there's so much to say, she says. Jacqueline starts to look down. I wonder at what. Then I see the cat starting to rub its side against the base of the sofa. Jacqueline rubs her back. She might be hungry. I'll have to feed her soon, she says. She stops talking as if she doesn't even remember that I just asked her a question. Jacqueline, I asked if you knew why my parents broke up. How did I end up alone with my mom? Why haven't I seen my dad all these years? I asked. Jacqueline gives me that blank, calm stare she had when we were outside earlier. Why don't we go upstairs, she asks. I'd like to show you something. Okay, I say. I'm not sure why she wants to go upstairs, but if I want any of my questions answered, I better follow her. I start to bring my tea mug with me. Oh no, don't bring that, she says with a stern tone of voice. I don't allow food or drink upstairs. Sure. I try to drink most of the tea, then I set the mug down on the tray. Jacqueline walks toward the stairs, the cat follows her, and I do too. The stairs, like the entire living room floor, is covered in plush white carpet. We walk up 7 steps, we pass a bathroom on the left, a bedroom on the right, a small office room, and then down at the end of the hall is another room. The door is closed. Jacqueline opens the door, and it's as if a flash of pink light escapes from the room and pierces my eyes. What is making this room so bright? I step inside and see that it's a burst of pink and bright, girly berry colors. It looks like the cartoon character Strawberry Shortcake's room, or maybe Southern Belle Barbie. Jacqueline turns around with a big, crazy smile on her face. Samantha, all of this was yours, she says. Isn't it beautiful? I kept it up all these years just for you. The big 4-poster bed is covered in pink sheets, a pink comforter with hearts and lots of pink and white stuffed animals. There are dolls sitting and standing on the floor. It's a total doll museum. On the wall are framed posters of Sesame Street characters, My Little Pony and Hello Kitty. The rugs are pink and white with hearts, and there's a rocking chair in the corner near one of the windows with 2 heart pillows on the seat. The room is giving me the creeps, and I smell that funny smell again that's burning my nose. Well, don't you like it? Jacqueline asks. Her smile begins to fade. I must not look too enthusiastic. Yeah, it's nice. Did you decorate it yourself, I ask, trying not to totally wig out on her and tell her, this room is yucky, what little girl would want to stay here? But no, I keep my cool. I have to. Well, I've been collecting dolls and stuffed animals over the years, she says. We used to send all of these toys and little things to your mother when you were a baby. Okay, I'm going to end that there because it goes on a little bit, but I want to read the very end because you're probably wondering what is the smell that's bothering Quincy's nose, and I think it's kind of funny. So at the very end, I'll just read the last part. Jacqueline, what's that smell, I ask? It's been burning my nose the whole time. Oh, it's probably just the mothballs, she says, holding on to the cat as if it were a baby in her arms. Oh, okay, I say. Thanks for the tea, Jacqueline. I'll call you next week. She doesn't respond. She gives me a blank stare. I try not to let it spook me, but it's hard. I walk out of the door, and she closes it swiftly behind me. Mothballs, what a terrible smell. So that's the end of that chapter. So this brings me to the end of the reading and my technical presentation. So I'd love to ask you if you have any questions or comments for me about anything I said. Yes, say your name. Azaria. Azaria, okay. What's your question or comment?
So, how come Jacqueline didn't tell Quincy before they were upstairs?
Didn't tell her what?
About the mothballs.
Well, there's some parts that I didn't read because it was going to go much longer. Quincy doesn't ask her until the end, what does that smell? I think, perhaps she's not wanting to be rude and she's trying to see what she can find out, so she doesn't want to be too direct. But by the end, it's bothering her so much, she has to ask her what it is. What's your name?
America. Do you have more books?
What's your name again?
America.
America, okay.
Do you have more books?
I do. I have some, my poetry book, Goddess Under the Bridge Poems, is there on the table, and I also have the anthology that I mentioned, Check the Rhyme, an anthology of poets, female poets and MCs. And I have another book that I didn't bring. It's a children's poetry book titled 10 Marbles. Yes, what's your name?
Amir.
Amir, okay.
Are we gonna be able to get a copy of the books?
Yeah, we can talk. We can definitely talk about that. They're here for display.
Oh, I got another question.
Yes.
Would your books be in the library?
You know what? I think this library does have a couple. I don't know if the library has Quincy Rules, but I believe it has Deanna in the middle, and it might have one of my poetry books.
And they're on order. We're gonna get Quincy Rules.
Okay, so there's your answer. So what about you all as readers? What are you reading now? What are some of your interests?
Well,
Yes.
I like your the Dana in the middle.
Deanna in the middle?
Yeah, because I like to read little teen stories.
So let's talk about that. What did you all think of the excerpt I read? I chose that one because it's one of the more conflict-ridden scenes in the book. Most of the scenes in the book are not that dramatic, but I sometimes read that and discuss it with teens to get you all's viewpoints about conflict resolution and how do you handle a difficult situation and how do you handle someone who might not be a good friend of yours kind of opposing you. So what did you think about that scene?
I think it was good. I actually liked it because it could be something that happened in high school. I mean, being that I'm in high school now, it's my first year, so yeah, it was kind of like that could be me or something like that.
So it made you feel like it could be, it's relatable and that it's realistic. It's not good, but it could happen because conflicts happen in everyday life. And, okay, and you were gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say it's a lot of things that you could relate to like high school, like a lot of events going on.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like the fight that happened and how they had the teacher come in and they get 3 days off the fight.
What did you all think about Deanne feeling surprised that a couple of the friends that she thought were really good friends didn't come to her rescue? They didn't help her when she was really having a problem. Yes.
I think they didn't come to help her because they were, maybe they were afraid.
Okay. They were afraid of what?
Getting into the fight and probably getting in trouble.
Okay. Afraid of getting into a fight, not wanting to get in trouble. Okay, good. Amir, yes.
They were fake.
They
They
were?
were friends.
They were?
They were fake.
Interesting. What do you mean by fake?
They were used for clout.
They were?
Only used for clout and fame.
Only use her for clout and fame? Interesting. Where do you get that perspective from? How does that come about?
Because they weren't by her side what she really needed to do. They were by her side, like Freddie St. Hills.
Okay, good. Very good comment. So in other words, it makes you think, well, they're with her when things are going well. But it's almost like they do a disappearing act when she really calls for help. Do good friends do a disappearing act on you when you need help? No, not generally. They usually, even if they can't fully help you, they at least do what? They at least try. They at least make the effort. Or they go get someone to help you, right? Good. So what about the excerpt I read from Quincy Rules? What did you all think about that? Quincy trying to find her birth father, and she's taking a chance by going to a woman's house who she doesn't even know. Do you think that's smart for a young person to do? Yes.
Not really for just to say I'm gonna go over this lady's house, but I mean, being that the fact that she's trying to find her father, and I guess by her going to this lady's house, she probably thinks she's gonna get closer to finding her answer to where her father is or where he might be or something. So, yeah, if I was to look for my father, I would probably go to her house and ask more questions about like have she seen him or about
Do you think there's something funny about this lady? Something, yes.
Because she's acting really weird because like, so she's first there, first she says, come on, we'll have some tea. Then she moves again, and then after a while when Quincy leaves, she shuts the door, and she stays there, and maybe she's thinking about something.
Right, because Quincy noticed that she didn't even say goodbye. She said goodbye to her or something to that nature, and the woman just slammed the door and there was no like real closure for her. So that made her feel probably what?
Sad.
A little uncomfortable maybe? Yeah? Okay, good. Do you all have any, yes, you had a question or comment? Do Do you all have any other questions or comments about books, reading, writing? Yes?
Did you have any experiences like related to the book, but like in your life?
Which book?
Dating.
Yes. Not exactly, but all young people go through some social conflict. It's just, what is the range of conflict? But I have really good friends, so I'll say that. A lot of them who I still know and talk to today. Yes?
Does most of your books, are they based off of experience that you have had in your life, or are they just ideas that you thought?
No, fictional, imagination. The only thing that I can say is inspiration is that, yes, I was a teen. Number one, I've been a young person, and I remember the fun, the adventure, the not always feeling sure of which way to go, you know, in terms of some social issues, but for the most part, I just kind of just use my own common sense, which is what you guys do, I'm sure, every day. But two, I was a teacher for middle school and high school students for many years. And my students inspired me through talking to me, sharing what they love reading about, sharing their lives. It made me want to write for young people, write for teens, because I was already a writer, but I was writing more so poetry, essays, blogging. I wrote some picture book stories, but it wasn't until I really got into reading the genre and studying it, and then talking and having programs with my secondary students, that I was like, wow, I really want to do this. I'm really excited about this genre, and I really want to further develop my relationship with students by reading this genre and having discussions surrounding these books. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming, and I hope to talk with you all a little bit apart from being on the mic, okay? All right.